Hello and welcome to another episode of Motors for the Masses. And this week we have an Asian head-to-head, Korea versus China. So what do we have for you this week? Well, in the blue corner representing China, we have the Motorini MT125RRi, bit of a mouthful. In the red corner, sort of, a bit of red down there, representing Korea, we have the Hyosung, or the Hyosung as the Americans would say, GT125R. Even at a glance you can see the Hyosung is a lot bigger, but does that mean it's a lot better? Well, first of all, let's look at size. Well, the Motorini is 1,925 millimeters long, whereas the Hyosung is 2,090 millimeters long. However, the Motorini is 750 millimeters wide, 50 millimeters wider than this. When it comes to height, this is 1,075 millimeters high, whereas this is 1,130. So what about seat height? Well, this one comes in with a 770 millimeter seat height. So you can see it's not as big as the other one, because the other one is 830 millimeters. Not quite so wobbly between your legs. This GTR is certainly a full-size bike, and interestingly, the length, the width, the tank size and the wheelbase are exactly the same on the 125 as they are on the 250 and the 650 model. The only difference is the 650 is 5 millimeters taller. That's it. So what about power? Well, this is where there is quite a gap. This one, pretty much full power, comes in at 14.2 brake horsepower. That means you're going to get 65, 70 miles an hour, quite happily cruising. Maybe even 75 or even 80 on a good day. Whereas this one only comes with 9 brake horsepower. That means you're going to get 55, 60 cruising, maybe even 65. perhaps on a 1-in-1 hill, 140, who knows? But anyway, it's certainly not as powerful as this. But of course, weight then comes into that. This one comes in at 130 kilos, whereas this is a bit of a debate. Now, some websites are saying it's 120 kilos. I cannot see that being possibly so. It's bigger, it's heavier, and it's certainly not going to be 120 kilos with a V-twin lump. Other websites are saying 166 kilos, and I think that's pretty more accurate, to be honest. Tell you what, let's find out. So we're at the MOT section of this bike shop, and Jamie is now going to wheel this bike in. We're going to weigh the front end, weigh the back end, and see what we come up with. So front end first. 82.2 kilos. Okay, rear end. And 80 kilos, which basically added together is going to be about 166. So there you go, there's your answer. So there we have it, we were in the 160 area. So 166 seems a hell of a lot more accurate than 120. Engines again, very different. This one uses a single cylinder 4-stroke air-cooled engine, whereas this one uses a V-twin double overhead cam air-cooled engine. Again, it's a 4-stroke, but it just looks a lot bigger. The big difference between these particular bikes is that this one is fuel injection, being a Euro 4 model, and this one, being the Euro 3 model, is using a carb. However, the fuel injection Euro 4 model is on its way, and we will be reviewing that when it arrives. Both bikes use upside down forks, although you can see there's a significant difference in size. This is quite small, whereas these are quite fat and chunky. And on the back, both use a monoshock in the middle. They look pretty similar, although I can't see how this one adjusts without taking loads of plastic off. Whereas this, in here, you can see the adjuster straight away. As far as stopping power is concerned, this one comes with a 300mm disc on the front, and this one comes with a 260mm disc on the front, 220mm on the back of this, and 230mm on the back of the GT-R. Both come with double pistons, front and rear. Tyre size, 110 on the front, 140 on the back, 110 on the front, and 150 on the back, so it's quite a chunky tyre. All this adds up to a bike that looks and feels much bigger than it actually is, especially when you consider 17-litre fuel tank, and even down to things like this exhaust. Now, a typical 125 has a tiny little exhaust pipe, like that one, but this has a massive end can and a big chunky exhaust looking like it comes off a 650. However, one thing that is disappointing is that although this looks nice and fat and chunky from this end, when you look around the back, not so nice, and that is not removable. Mind you, is anything uncustomizable these days? I don't think so. I mean, even if you just change the exhaust, which, let's be honest, a lot of people do, or anybody with a grinder and a stick can probably get it out. So why don't we discuss the looks for a second? I mean, yes, we've already said that this looks bigger, but does it look the best? I think this actually looks stunning. It's got fantastic lines and an amazing design. And surely size is only relevant to the size of the rider. I mean, if you get a typical 17-year-old who's probably 5'5", he's not going to look very good on this, and he's probably not even going to touch the floor. So he'd probably look more at home sitting on the Motorini. Whereas a chunkier 40-something gentleman that hasn't passed his test because he couldn't be bothered, like me, would probably be more at home on one of these. The Hyosung at the front has quite a typical superbike look. It's got this double light, which is very typical of Hyosung, and this nice pointed nose cone. The back end of this is nothing to write home about. It's got indicators and a light. They work. The Motorini, on the other hand, has a much sharper nose and a typical Italian looking front end, very Aprilia, very Yamaha. I say Italian, of course Yamaha's Japanese, you know what I mean. And this rear end is amazing. I love the design of this light, absolutely stunning. Now, it's not often I get passionate about the look of a light. I like it. From a side view, this looks pretty stunning as well. I absolutely love this exhaust pipe. It's really well laid out. And it's got a nice design with this Yamaha style back end. Really nice looking. Very beautiful looking bike. Whereas this one from the side, again, typically looking of a CBR or something else around the 600 to 750 mark. It's just a big looking sports bike. Nothing extra special, but it's nice. I like the look of it. Now, I used to have one of these back in 2006. I had the 2006 version, and it felt big. It wasn't so great to ride because it wasn't very reliable, but now they've moved on and they've become much better bikes than they were before. So let's talk about build quality. Well, this one feels pretty solid. Nothing's really rattly, everything feels quite solid. The plastic feels quite thick. Everything is, I mean, the kick plate is nice and solid. The pegs are pegs. Again, everything feels quite solid and well put together. You know, the plastic is not flopping around, it's bolted everywhere. It feels like it's been done properly. The seat is comfortable and it's got a nice passenger seat. However, it is a little bit wobbly here, but nothing special. The brake pedal does feel a little bit small, but it does its job. The side stand is quite solid and the spring is nice and fat, so when you are moving it, you feel confident that it's not going to break or fall over. The mirrors feel nice and solid, they're quite movable, easy to move, but the stalks are short and quite chunky, so you don't really have to worry about vibration when you're doing 70 miles an hour. Of course, on a lot of bikes you are going to get vibration on the mirrors, but less likely so on this, I think. The Motorini, on the other hand, does not feel quite as solid. The plastic feels a little bit flimsy. These stalks feel as though they could vibrate under speed, albeit not much speed, and the plastic is okay. Don't get me wrong, the fairing is quite solid, it's quite well put on, but things just feel a little bit cheaper. This kick plate actually moves and wobbles. These feel sturdy enough, but we're not actually sure what the point of this is, because where it's got this rear hump, we're imagining perhaps this comes off because it's a little bit wobbly and maybe a seat goes in its place. But it doesn't feel very solid, and I wouldn't be confident putting a person on the back of this. Now, apart from that, you've got this plastic cover on the tank, and again, it's a bit tappy. Now, I just think the build quality is not quite as good as the Hyosung. Don't get me wrong, it's not shoddy, it's just not quite as good as that one. However, when we get onto the price, you'll see there's a lot more advantage to buying this. But there is one thing on this bike I really do not like, and that is this. It's a springy stand, which means every time you move the bike, it flicks up. And not only does it have a tiny little spring, but this housing here just looks a bit cheap. Let me demonstrate. So let's start these up and see what they sound like. First of all, the Hyosung GTR. Not bad, quiet. It's okay. It's okay, not bad. Now that actually feels really nice to ride. I'm very impressed with that. It does bring back memories of my last one, except this just feels better all around. Of cornering is really confident. Even though it's a massive bike, you don't feel as though you are slinging a huge bike into corners. And that's probably because it's got a very lightweight engine. But overall, very impressed indeed. So now is the turn of the Motorini RRi. It sounds quite nice actually. Much deeper than the Hyosung. Now with this Motorini, I actually want to show you the screen because it's actually pretty cool when you switch it on. I like that. Well, that definitely feels like a much smaller bike to ride, but it's not a bad bike to ride. Now, it feels smaller than my FB Mondial still, so for me, someone 5'11", it's probably a little bit too small. When I'm turning a corner, I feel as though I have to move my knee out to actually get the handlebar around. But other than that, it feels quite nice to ride. It's certainly nimble, and you can get it around the corners quite easily. There seems to be a little bit of over rev before you change gears, but I think you'll get used to that. Other than that, for the price, which is what we're coming on to next, I don't think you can grumble. So, it's time to talk prices. Well, this is where the Motorini comes back in the game. This, in either blue or black, with the racing graphics on it, comes in at just £2,299 on the road with 2 years parts and labour warranty. Now that is a fantastic deal, I think. This one, now this is where it gets a little bit complicated. If you want this particular bike, the Euro 3 spec with the carburetor, pre-registered, comes in at £2,799 on the road with a 2-year parts and labour warranty. If you want a brand new unregistered bike, that would cost you £3,399. Or if you want to wait for the Euro 4 model with a fuel injection, that one will be coming at £4,099. But we don't know when that's coming yet. Now, to me, £2,799 for a bike this size, regardless of whether it's got a carburetor, regardless of whether it's already registered, is fantastic. And if it was my money, I'm sorry, this one's just a little bit too small for my liking. I would definitely be riding home on this one. But whatever you choose, I don't think you can go far wrong. We've already had, whilst we're filming, someone come in asking about this bike. So obviously it appeals to a lot of people. For me, I prefer the bigger one, but that's just me. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Motors for the Masses. Thank you very much for joining us. Please come back next time when we'll have more bikes for you. In fact, the next video, we're doing a special on gear, helmets, jackets, gloves, boots, trousers, so watch out for that one. And we'll be back very soon. So again, thank you for watching, thank you for joining us, thank you for coming. Anything else that involves you watching this video, please like, subscribe and share if you haven't already. And until next time, remember, drive and ride safe, but have fun. Bye-bye.